any second from now. And good. Okay, we're on live, ladies and gentlemen. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Here's the Prabhus glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Any second from now. Oh, wait a minute. I have to shut
good.
off.
Okay, we're on
Excuse
live,
me,
ladies and gentlemen.
Da, 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 da. Sorry about that. Okay, back. Now, I know Nirhari Prabhu and Bhattacarya, I know you're famous musicians. I'm going through songs of the Vaishnava Acharyas, which Acyutananda Prabhu in a private Zoom last night reminded me, because it says here in the book, compiled by Acyutananda. He said, no, not compiled, just compiled. He said, translated. He said, I had to learn Bengali and Sanskrit in order to do this seva.
We're so lucky. Prabhupada has blessed us with him because, I mean, he was the link to us to connect to this glorious Guru Varga, our parampara, Prabhupada's dear God brothers, like, Sridhar Maharaj, Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Puri, like to promote Puri Maharaj. And so I don't know if you saw the lecture. I think he did. His talk on Guru Purnima. So I feel very honored.
I have not seen it yet, but thank you for sending me the link. I have not seen it yet, but thank you.
Yeah.
Send me the link.
Gaur Prabhu, if you could send me the link too, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, I will.
Yes.
Okay.
There is a group in England that It's called Mercy, Grace, and Leela, and Acyutananda Prabhu, who's disciple of Narayan Maharaj, but Budar Prabhu, who's a god brother of ours from Boston. He lived in Europe for many, many years, and he made him a devotee. Anyhow, story short, this is a fantastic group. You can hear it sometimes Jadurani or Shamarani giving lectures, like the other day. It was 2:30 in the morning for me, but it was fantastic. Wow. And just one, it's just remembering in reading teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is a summary study of Chaitanya Charitamrita. In that one, Kaviraj Goswami mentions that just remembering the names of his devotees, the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada is our Guru Varga, our associates close, always they're praised in this way, that they are intimate. Our Guru Maharaj, our Srila Prabhupada, is an intimate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And remembering Kaviraj Goswami says in their names, as that will give us attainment of Krishna Prem.
Very nice.
For sure, we guarantee that.
So this next song is, as I'm going through the songbook systematically, one by one, this next song, Radha Krishna Bol Bol, I think everyone probably knows it. It's coming from Gitavali, and I looked up Gitavali, and it's one of the best known works of Srila Bhakti Vinod. It came out in 1893 at the same time as Sharanagati. And of course, it's all kirtans glorifying the Lord. The mood of the entire book is very joyful. The first chapter is about morning kirtans. The next chapter is about artiks, about Gaur Gadadhar, Lord Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, and Krishna enjoying Bhoga. There's 6 songs about that glorify prasadam, which we sang one yesterday, Ikdena Shante Pure, and everyone, of course, knows Sharira Avijajal. And then at the end, there's 2 sets of kirtans that are meant to be heard loudly on the streets of towns and villages. And the first is for Lord Chaitanya, and the rest are for Lord Krishna. So Gitavali goes into a slightly more philosophical approach with a couple of songs I'm not familiar with, Shreyo Nirnaya and Parishishta at the end. And then there's 3 ashtakams, set of 8 songs, which glorify the holy name of and Radharani. And the last ashtaka serves as a purport to the 8 verses spoken by Lord Chaitanya, known as Shikshastaka, which really gets me interested to want to know those. But for right now, Radha Krishna Bol Bol is in section 4 of the Sri Nagara Kirtan. And I'll just call that up here on the screen right now so that we can all sing along.
Wow. Serendipity.
Are you familiar with this
Acyutananda was
one?
talking just about that.
Oh, was he? Oh, okay, great.
Krishna.
Okay.
Yeah, he said he sang that. He learned his kirtans from Krishna Das Kaviraj, Krishna Das Babaji Maharaj.
Right.
And this particular one, it was one of the songs he sang to the people, and he said it was written in a colloquial language by Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Colloquial
so that
means
everybody could understand.
the village language, colloquial?
Yes, yeah.
Common language.
The tongue of the day.
Okay.
So the people, as when Acyutananda Maharaj and then sang him, people were just like, they loved it.
Nice. So listen, it gets to be kind of messy when we all respond back because it's all different time lapses. So would you just like to sing through this one? You know this one, right?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
I know it, but I'm deferring to you and Bhattacarya since you're my seniors.
No. Okay. I'll try to remember because from his tape too. Radha Krishna bol bol bolo re sobai, shiksha diya sadna diya, hirche neche gornitai, miche mayar boshe jacho beshe, kacho hudu bubai. Radha Krishna bol bolo bolo re sobai. Shiva Krishna Das e Vishwas Korle Tor Ardu Kudnai Bolbe Jabe Pulak Habe Jorbe Anki Bolotai Radha Krishna Bolo Sangit Radha Krishna Bol Bolo Re Sobai Krishna Bolo Sangit Chalo e Matra Bikachai Sakal Bipod Bhakti Vinod Bole Chakon Om Nam Gai Radha Krishna bol bolo re sobai. Sorry if I couldn't remember all the tune.
Good. Yeah. There's a couple of tunes for it.
Yes.
Krishna Chandra, do you want to read the translation, the first one, and we'll take, and then Nandapatni and Jivanmukta.
Jai, thank you. Chant, Radha Krishna. Everyone chant. When Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda came dancing through Nadia, they gave these teachings. Chant Radha Krishna. Everyone chant. You are caught up in a whirlwind of senseless action and are sinking lower and lower. Chant Radha Krishna. Everyone chant.
Jivanmukta.
If you just understand that the spirit soul is the eternal servant of Krishna, you will never have any more sorrows. Chant Hare Krishna and your eyes will fill with tears and your body will feel transcendental shivering. Chant Radha Krishna. Everyone chant.
Nandapatni.
Simply chant Radha Krishna and join with us. Those are our only alms we beg. Chant, Radha Krishna. Everyone chant. All dangers will be gone when that name is chanted, says Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Chant, Radha Krishna. Everyone chant.
Well, there's the vaccine. All dangers will be gone when the name is chanted. Radha Krishna.
Bol.
Radha Krishna bolo re sobai. This is a song sung by Thakur Bhaktivinoda. It is said that Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, they are walking through the streets of the Nadia town chanting this instruction, addressing everyone. They say, you, all people, please chant Radha Krishna or Hare Krishna. Radha Krishna bolo re sobai. Every one of you, simply chant Radha Krishna or Hare Krishna. This is the instruction. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, both together while walking and dancing through the street. He was instructing that all of you simply say, Radha Krishna, E Shikadiya Sabnadiya Pirche. Goranitai, Pirche means walking. All over the town Nadia, they were teaching this. E Shikadiya Sabnadiya Pirche. Nietzsche Goranitai. Then he says, Keno, Maya Boshe, Jacho Beshe, why you are being washed away on the waves of this Maya material existence. Kacho Habu Dubu Bai. And whole day and night you are merged into full of anxiety, simply just like a man when he is put into the water, sometimes drowning, sometimes coming up, but he is struggling very hard. Similarly, in the ocean of Maya, why you are so much struggling? Sometimes being drowned, sometimes coming up, sometimes feeling happiness, sometimes no happiness. Actually, there is no happiness in the water. If you are put into the water and if you are sometimes drowned and sometimes come out, that does not mean happiness. To come out for the temporary time, for the time being, and again being drowned up, that is not happiness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing that why you are troubling so much, Maya Raboshe, under the spell of Maya. Then what is to be done? He says that Jeev Krishna Das, E Vishwas, simply just believe it, that you are servant of God. You are servant of Krishna. Jeev Krishna Das, E Vishwas, correlate to Aradukanai. As soon as you come to this point that you are servant of God, servant of Krishna, immediately all your troubles become ceased. There is no more trouble. So this instruction is given by Lord Chaitanya walking over the streets. Jeev Krishna Das E Vishwas Koreleto Ardukkanai. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives his own personal experience. He says, Jai Sakalabipod, I become released from all kinds of dangers. Gai Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he is Acharya. He is experienced. He says that whenever I chant Radha Krishna or Hare Krishna, I become freed from all kinds of dangers. Jai Sakala Vipod, Jakon Ami Onam Gai. Whenever I chant his holy name, Hare Krishna or Radha Krishna, immediately all my dangers are over. Radha Krishna Bolo, Sange Chalo. So Lord Chaitanya therefore says that I am walking on the street and begging from you. What is that begging? That you simply chant. This is my request, begging. Radha Krishna Bolo, Sange Chalo. And just follow me. Radha Krishna Bolo, Sange Chalo, Ematra Bhiksha Chai. I am simply asking you for this contribution, that you chant Hare Krishna and follow me, so that your struggle for existence in this material ocean will cease. Jai, Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so that brings us to our next chapter.
In India, when you're cello.
Oh yes.
You know, it's like, let's go, come on, let's go, come on.
Yeah. Cello for the rickshaw wallas. Okay, let me just find Prabhupada Books page. I have to stop the share, I guess. The computer's not letting me get to what I'm trying to get to here. Okay, good. Chapter 26. I'll just close this. And Bhattacharya is converted. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yes, I have my mic.
Yeah.
Okay, so Krishna Chandra Prabhu, you want to start the first paragraph?
Thank you, Prabhu. For the impersonalist and voidist philosophers, the next world is a world of senseless eternity and bliss. The voidist philosophers want to establish that ultimately everything is senseless, and the impersonalists want to establish that in the next world there is simply knowledge devoid of activity. Thus, less intelligent salvationalists try to carry imperfect knowledge into the sphere of perfect spiritual activity. Because the impersonalist experiences material activity as miserable, he wants to establish spiritual life without activity. He has no understanding of the activities of devotional service. Indeed, spiritual activity and devotional service is unintelligible to the voidist philosophers and impersonalists. The Vaishnava philosophers know perfectly well that the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can never be impersonal or void because he possesses innumerable potencies. Through his innumerable energies, he can present himself in multiple forms and still remain the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, despite expanding himself in multiple forms and diffusing his innumerable energies, he can maintain his transcendental position.
Any comments or questions before Nanda Patni continues? Why don't you read the next two, Nanda Patni? This one's really short.
Okay. Thus, Lord Chaitanya exposed many defects in the Mayavadi philosophy, and although Bhattacharya tried to establish himself by logic and word jugglery, Lord Chaitanya was able to maintain himself from his attacks. The Lord established that Vedic literature is meant for three things: understanding our relationship with the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead, acting according to that understanding, and achieving the highest perfection of life, love of Godhead. Anyone who tries to prove that the Vedic literatures aim at anything else is of necessity a victim of his own imagination. That's a good turn of phrase, gosh. The Lord then quoted some verses from the Puranas by which he established that Shankaracharya was deputed to teach by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He quoted a verse from the Padma Purana 62:31, in which it stated that the Lord ordered Mahadev, Lord Shiva, to present some imaginary interpretations of Vedic literatures in order to divert people from the actual purpose of the Vedas. By doing so, you will attempt to make them atheists, the Lord said. After that, they can produce more population. It is also stated in Padma Purana 25:9 that Lord Shiva explained to his wife Parvati that in the age of Kali, he would come in the form of a Brahman to preach an imperfect interpretation of the Vedas, known as Mayavadism, which in actuality is but a second edition of atheistic Buddhist philosophy.
I find it
I
interesting.
can just imagine if, yes, go.
No, you go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just saying, I was imagining Acyutananda would just like chomp right into this paragraph and he'd start elaborating on Shankaracharya and ripping the Mayavadis apart. But go ahead, Jivan Mukta.
Well, a couple of things there is interesting that one of the purposes was to increase the population. That when people turn to atheists, that the population increases. But we actually see that as the population is increasing today because people are becoming more and more atheistic. I mean, I'm looking out my window now and there's everyone with dogs. I mean, you know, the population actually, in many respects, human population is decreases. I mean, the Varna Shankar certainly increases, but, you know, most young couples are not having, if they marry at all, you know, they're not having, whether they're married or not, but generally they don't even get married. They certainly don't have kids, very many at least. Not like in the past, you know, where different religious groups. So it's just curious. I mean, I certainly understand that, you know, that through atheism in the past anyway, that people were more prone to engage in sinful, you know, activities. So the other thing too is that being
Prabhu,
said.
if I can
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
And your statement, I just thought about maybe, well, that overpopulation means that sinful activity, but when there are devotee grihastas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said there's 50% of devotees are created, the other ones are made devotees. So having Vaishnava couples bringing forth a Prabhupada say glorious great progeny, you know, it will better the situation on the planet. And many times he said, oh, there is no question of scarcity. which that's one of the things that, I sometimes have discussions with my no brother-in-law, but I guess his brother-in-law is Bhattacarya's sister's husband. He's a doctor, and he goes with this theory of like, we're so powerful, and now that we're jeopardizing the planet, and there's too many people on the planet, and we're all gonna die. No, Prabhupada said there is land, plenty of land. I see it here, absolutely plenty of land. So if you let people grow their food, like Prabhupada wanted us to do, grow our food, grow our clothing, our own clothing, there'll be no problem in scarcity. It's like the story he used to tell about bringing a sack of grain to a corner or to a place, and the birds and animals will come and take what they need and leave. It's only humans that will come and take the bag and start selling to others for profit. But,
that's in the Nectar of Instruction that Prabhupada gives that example. I think in Acyutananda, collecting more than
right.
We waste. We waste I think the statistic is, modestly, I think we waste 40% of food.
Wow.
It's definitely on that level. Yeah, it might even be higher than that.
And the story of sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, it just reminded me of the story of Mrigari, the hunter. It's actually in the explanation of the Atmaram verse, the 61 explanations that Lord Chaitanya brings forth, where he is converted. Narada Muni comes with his dear friend Parvat Muni to visit this disciple, the hunter, the ex-hunter, and Narada Muni, before he leaves, and he says, "Okay, just build yourself a hut next to the river, create a platform where you have Tulsi and feed her, and do this worship of her, and chant, do the Vaishnava service, chant the name." He said, "Well, what am I going to do?" He said, "No, don't worry, I'll provide what your needs are." So he said, when the entire village find out that he was a devotee now, they start bringing tons of grain. So when Narada Muni comes back to visit him, he said, "Please, Master, we don't need this many. There's just so much food brought to us. All we need is a little grain brought every day to us." And so I was just thinking that in old times there was no need. Prabhupada said the Brahmins would utilize everything. There was no need of refrigeration because the products, whether it's milk products like that, they were utilized and processed in a certain way, in a Vedic way, that no need of refrigeration. And leftovers there wasn't think of. I'm guilty of that. We cook something and sometimes too much or whatever, and we try to invite people. That's one thing that was traditional in my mom's family. My great grandmother, she would send my mother have big houses there in Buenos Aires, and they have an inner courtyard and then two doors, the one to the street and another door. You had to come into the house proper. So in between those two doors, great grandma will set up a table with cloth and will send the children, my mother will sit out in the street to tell people that it's lunchtime. And when I read this by Prabhupada, I was like, wow, so that's very cultural. If you're a Grihasta, and like Prabhupada said, what was it, Agora, you probably know this. I don't know if it was 10 blocks around the temple, nobody should go without food or starve. And so see how wonderful it is. I mean, so what we lack in here is wisdom, there is ignorance. And that's what we need to do, just break through these nations. Like he says, please give up bolo bolo, chant the name of Radha Krishna, give up your miseries, really. I mean, like going up and down in the water is no fun. I remember my sister threw me in the water. She wanted me to learn how to swim. She was 11 years old, and a little boy, she learned how to swim. So I had to 4, and I didn't know how to swim yet. So she threw me in the water, I remember both in and out. I was no. So that, is that people, it's great. I mean, I'm happy. It's what a poor thing compared to real happiness. And one thing about I like that Prabhupada can put the text in, but he talks about Sambandha, Videya, and Prayoga in an English way for us to understand, to create a relationship with the object, the process, and then the goal. So I love Prabhupada how he explains it. And in law and physics, you have to have a relationship with the object in order to explain, to connect. You have to connect. So that's the importance of Guru, isn't it? That will connect us to Krishna. Otherwise, how can we love him? If we don't hear Harikatha from the pure devotees, the pure source, how can we develop any inkling? Well, Krishna, yes, the supreme goal, yes. And when we hear, this amazing songs or hear from in the process, here it is. Let me see. It's wonderful. That's it.
Who was reading? I lost track.
Matt,
I think.
Did you finish Nandapatni?
Yeah, I think I did. If you scroll down a bit.
She read the two paragraphs.
Yeah.
But in the first one, I think it's in the first one where he talks about, it's wonderful that you like, Mataji, is the great phrase on victim necessity, the victim of his own imagination.
Yeah, that's a great punchline.
And then, isn't it? And then he's saying, let me see, but God, I can't find this. But he talks about that the process throughout the Vedas is that we establish a relationship, the process, and then the goal. Personal quoted Puranas or Shiva.
Acyutananda Prabhu is here with us. Now, may I ask him if he can continue?
I was on another Zoom.
Oh,
thing from London, and the time there is all different.
8 hours ahead.
But what you were talking about before, when I came in, is you'll hear this so much. George Carlin and even my teachers, more wars and more people have been killed in wars in the name of religion than any other thing, any other cause. No. World War I, World War II, Stalin, Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, they're all atheists.
Good
and
point.
they're incompetent to be leaders. They want to take charge, kick out the king or the other one, and then they become paranoid. Oh, I'm in a country of 100 billion people. They could all turn against me. So let's kill about 2/3. Let's starve them out. And anybody that remembers the previous administration, the previous regime, they are the first to go.
Yes.
And Stalin made this a very useful. It's in the thing. Useful idiots, the people that back him go, yeah, this is the way to go. They're the first to go once they take over.
He was very clever. He got the Pulitzer Prize. The writer, chief editor, I think it was New York Times at that time. He wrote many articles, and he brought him to Russia, and he gave him a tour of Ukraine and all kinds of things that it was all selected for him to see the best and then write about. So he convinced the idiot, the helpful idiot, about doing the propaganda.
Karl Marx. Karl Marx was sending articles to who said go west, young man, go west. Who was that editor? And he was sending articles to America. And then he asked for more money. And the editor said, no more money. So Karl Marx started writing pamphlets about about communism, manifesto, etc., totalitarian. So it is said if he had gotten paid a little more, there never would have been a communism. So
Prabhupada spoke
I
about
remember
communism in such a way that he felt that the West, the capitalist countries, were demonstrating their weakness by not crushing communism, by not actively declaring war and crushing that system. Even though here's Prabhupada a sadhu, and yet he's basically ridiculing the West for not crushing communism, inciting them almost to go out and destroy this system, this demonic system.
And that's why Prabhupada stated that the main purpose in creating this gigantic temple of Vedic planetarium was to destroy atheism in the form of mechanistic science and communism.
In the heart of Bengal, Bengal, which was like, I don't know if it's currently ruled by communists, but certainly was affected by influence by communism.
Actually, when we were when we were sent out on traveling sancton in India, this out of Bombay, one of the main kind of focuses, if you will, or our meditation as such, was that we were told that our distribution of the books in so many different languages and going town to town, village to village, was a counter force to communism. And that was very much our mindset when we were, distributing all over northern India. It definitely was. That's always stayed with me because we were sort of told that had come down from Srila Prabhupada. And I was somewhat naive about how communism was penetrating that part of the world at the time, although I was aware of, Vietnam and things like that. But I wasn't really aware of the sense that was there that communism could well and truly penetrate India. So that was definitely our our kind of thrust when we were out in the streets, which was kind of gratifying in a way.
They called
George Patton,
General
Patton, and maybe also Eisenhower said after the Second World War, we fought the wrong enemy.
Wow.
Right.
We can see
He
communism.
wanted to go after the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I want to show everybody my new gift.
It's fantastic. I see the difference. Hare Krishna.
A devotee here paid for them.
Wonderful.
And in 2 days, they reset. They were mine before, and then they got out of shape, and I just fitted them. So now I can smile.
Nice. Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Prabhu,
Thank
did you
you.
get Acyutananda?
Thank you. We'll give them. And so she's doing. She paid for it outright, $1,000, and then she's doing a GoFundMe. And I said, anybody who gives $100 can get my book with a signature, and I'll bite into it, so that they can see. They can see that their money went for the teeth. That's an important thing. If you give money, this at churches, this is called fungibility. You'll hear that word, political word. Money is fungible. They take money for a certain cause, and then they spend it usually on themselves, or they.
I never heard that word before.
Fungible money. A pastor got in trouble. He collected money for a big fountain, but he spent it on his TV time, which is still, a chinta beta. But the government said, you lied, and that's misappropriation. I don't know if he won the case, but that's a case of fungibility.
I'm curious, how much were they? $1,000?
Froze.
It was $1,000 for them?
Yeah,
That's a good deal.
I don't have it. That's more than I make in a week.
Mhm.
Oh,
Acyutananda Prabhu,
yeah.
Wow.
did you get the email I sent you?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. Send it again.
Oh,
Should
Acyutananda,
I
can you,
read some?
okay.
yes, could you please continue the reading?
Bhattacharya was overwhelmed by the explanations of Lord Chaitanya. Oops. After hearing Mayavad philosophy explained by Lord Chaitanya, he could not speak. After he remained silent for some time, Lord Chaitanya asked him, "My dear Bhattacharya, don't be confused by this explanation. Please take it from me that the devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the highest perfectional stage of human understanding. Indeed, it is so attractive that even those who are already liberated become devotees by the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." That's Atmarama in English. There are so many such conversions in Vedic literature. For instance, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 7th chapter, 10th verse, the famous Atmarama verse is especially meant for those who are attracted to self-realization and liberated from all material attachments. Such liberated impersonalists become attracted to devotional service by the various activities of Lord Krishna. Such are the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Can we just look at this for a second? Did you want to recite that verse, Acyutananda?
Atmaramasya munayo nirgranta apyarukrame kurvantya ahaitukam bhaktim itam bhuta guno hari. All different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take pleasure in Atma or spirit. There are different varieties of Atma, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of God, unto the Personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls.
So this is a very important verse in defeating the Mayavadis.
Yes,
Right.
Lord Chaitanya is going to explain it to Sarvabhauma, I think 18 times, 18 different versions.
Wow. Just to Sarvabhauma.
And then
He explains it, we read in the Sanatan chapter, we read it, he explains it, I think, more than 50 different ways.
it's 61 times.
61, wow.
61 different times. 32 of them Atmarams are pure devotees. 16 are in the Vaidhi Bhakti and 16 on Raganuga Bhakti.
16 on Vaidhi and 16 on Raganuga?
Yes, they're varieties of devotees.
I see.
They're all Atmaram.
Okay. Vijay Garanga Prabhu, welcome back, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Jai. Just got
Aloha.
in from swimming in the ocean.
Jai
Jai,
Vidya Prabhu.
yeah, please continue. Next paragraph.
Bhattacharya.
Actually, in pure consciousness.
Actually, in pure consciousness, the living entity understands himself as the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. Under the spell of illusion, a person accepts the gross and subtle bodies as his self. Such a conception is the basis of the doctrine of transference. Actually, the part and parcel of the Supreme is not eternally subjected to gross and subtle bodily life. The gross and subtle coverings do not compromise the living entity's eternal form. They can be changed. In other words, the living entity, who is originally pure spirit, can be conditioned by the gross and subtle bodies, and by freeing himself from these gross and subtle conditionings, again attain his situation as pure spirit. Mayavadi philosophers take advantage of this doctrine of transference by saying that the living entity is under the wrong impression when he thinks himself to be part and parcel of the Supreme. They maintain that the living entity is the Supreme himself. this doctrine cannot be tenable. It's basically a lie.
Mhm.
This is the is this the original version of the Chaitanya teachings of Lord Chaitanya?
1968 version.
Yeah, it's just, you could really tell by the vocabulary,
Uh-huh.
like using words like transference instead of transmigration, or
Uh-huh.
these are probably the originals, right?
Not so polished.
But they sound great. I mean, it's beautiful and very poetic in its own way.
Yes. Bhattacharya then asked.
This doctrine, the doctrine of transference, is changing.
Yes.
Brahma Vikar. And we say, no, it is Shakti Vikar. I said last time, the electric power is hot. So it can also run an electric heater. Prabhupada says also, by changing the energy of the electric current, you can run a refrigerator and the effect is cold, but the powerhouse is not cold. See? So even the Ramanuja say that Brahman or even Narayan changes into, he doesn't expand the material world, he becomes the material world. And we have a difference with that. We say it is Shakti Vikar, not Brahman Vikar Vichitra. Pariman is another word, Pariman. So it is transference. Transmigration is when something moves. We say transmigration of the soul from one body to another. This has a different meaning than transference.
Nice distinction.
It is a big distinction.
Jagadananda Prabhu, are you able to read, or do you need to honor prasadam right now?
He's hungry.
Okay, I don't want to disturb him if he's honoring prasadam. I asked him to unmute, but I guess he wants to remain unmute. Okay, so it's my turn then. Okay, back to sharing the screen. All right. Bhattacharya then asked Lord Chaitanya to explain the famous Atmarama. No, did you just read that?
No.
Okay. Bhattacharya then asked Lord. Huh?
No, go ahead.
Bhattacharya then asked Lord Chaitanya to. Okay. He asked Lord Chaitanya to explain the famous Atmarama verse, for he desired to hear it from the Lord himself. Lord Chaitanya replied that, first of all, Bhattacharya should explain the verse according to his own understanding, and then Lord Chaitanya would explain it. Interesting. To me, what this means is that Lord Chaitanya wants to see exactly how much Sarvabhauma has actually understood, and then he's going to fill in all the blanks. At least that's my interpretation, for what it's worth. But in other words, I'm taking this as a lesson in learning how to listen to others. Like, if you want to be a good communicator, first of all, you have to be able to understand the level of the person that you're dealing with. And then once you understand where they're coming from, then you can relate to them better. That's my mundane interpretation. All right. Bhattacharya then began to explain the Atmarama shloka using his methods of logic and grammar. Thus, he explained the Atmarama shloka in 9 different ways. The Lord appreciated his erudite scholarship in explaining the verse and said, "My dear Bhattacharya, I know that you are a representative of the learned scholar Brihaspati and can explain any portion of the Shastras nicely. Yet, your explanation is more or less based on academic education only. Aside from this academic scholarly approach, there is another explanation." Jivan Mukta Prabhu.
Then, at the request of Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya explained the Atmarama shloka. The words of the verse were analyzed thus: number 1, Atmarama; 2, Cha; 3, Munaya; 4, Nirkranta; 5, Api; 6, Urukrame; 7, Kurvanti; 8, Ahaitukam; 9, Bhaktim; 10, Itambhuta Guna; 11, Hari. This verse has already been explained in the Lord's teachings to Sanatana Goswami. Lord Chaitanya did not mention the 9 different explanations of Bhattacharya, but he did explain the verse by analyzing these 11 words. In this way, he expounded 61 different explanations of the verse. In summary, he said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full of innumerable potencies. No one can estimate how many transcendental qualities he possesses. His qualities are always inconceivable, and all processes of self-realization inquire into the potencies, energies, and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, the devotees of the Lord immediately accept the inconceivable position of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya explained that even great liberated souls like the Kumaras and Shukadeva Goswami were also attracted to the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord. But the Acharya appreciated Lord Chaitanya's explanation, and he concluded that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Krishna himself. But the Acharya then began to deprecate his own position, relating that he had at first considered Lord Chaitanya to be an ordinary human being and therefore committed an offense. He then fell down at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, deprecating himself, and requested the Lord to show his causeless mercy upon him. Lord Chaitanya appreciated the humility of this great scholar and therefore exhibited his own form, first with 4 hands, then with 6 hands, Sadbhuj. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then repeatedly fell down at the Lord's lotus feet and composed various prayers to him. He was undoubtedly a great scholar, and after receiving the causeless mercy of the Lord, he was empowered to explain the Lord's activities in different ways. Indeed, he was able to express the method of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
I'd just like to make a little comment, if I may. And that is how Sarvabhauma was feeling really bad for minimizing the Lord, referring to him as an ordinary human being, and how this was an offense. So I'm trying to figure out how to express this without criticizing someone, so I won't mention any names. But a new movie came out in glorification of one of our godbrothers, and another godbrother who is very scholarly made references to Lord Chaitanya as being a great saint and reformer. And so one sannyasi asked me and a few other godbrothers to comment, and another godbrother commented, "This is not correct, referring to Lord Chaitanya as a great saint and a reformer. This is minimizing his position." And the point came up was, if you're always associating with academics, that could have an influence on you, instead of referring to Lord Chaitanya as Krishna himself. So I'm sure.
There's some noise.
Is that you, Dvija? Are you being noisy?
Kind of noise.
Yeah, that's chewing. Somebody's chewing, I think.
No, it sounded like the wind.
Very high. Yeah, it's a wind thing. Okay, it stopped.
Okay, good. Yeah. Anyway, just something to heads up about that.
Because
Sorry, go ahead.
earlier was it said how I also saw, was invited to a Mayavadi gathering, and they were all going Namo Narayan. They think that because Narayan is Sattva-gun, and they think that they're flattering you by saying that you're Narayan. And someone said to me, one of the gentlemen there goes, Namo Narayan. And I'm looking around. Oh, me? So this is a common custom of Mayavadis to call each other Narayan. So Chandrasekhar first brought Sarvabhauma to Lord Chaitanya. He says, when you call people Narayan, in this case, you're right. This one time, you're right.
Okay. Right. Yes.
Even a broken clock is occasionally correct.
Where are we?
If I could just make a point also.
Okay.
In the previous, one of the previous paragraphs, it stated that the objective of Shankaracharya was to delude the
Atheists.
atheists. But I also have read where the objective was to reintroduce the authority of the Vedas that had been undermined by the Buddhists. So, I guess it could be that, in anything that Lord Krishna does, I mean, many things could be accomplished. But, that was certainly one of the objectives, is to reintroduce the authority of the Vedas, not simply to misrepresent the conclusions of the Vedas, but to even if it meant misrepresenting the conclusions of the Vedas, which was for one group of people, it still introduced the Vedas as the authoritative source of truth. Even though that truth was misrepresented, it still established the Vedas as the source of truth.
It's kind of fascinating that it was reintroduced in a perverted form.
Well, he had to take into consideration that Buddhism was so prevalent, had such a hold on the societies at that time, that it was a gradual introduction, just like Prabhupada said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. His objective and his strategy in preaching in the West was that he made concessions, right? He made concessions regarding young boys and young girls and even accepting women into his movement. But he made those concessions with the objective that gradually he threw a net out, and gradually he was going to introduce all the rules and regulations and become stricter and more genuine as far as the expression of the culture, the Vedic culture. So it's a strategy, a preaching strategy.
Krishna Chandra.
Absolutely.
There's someone's making a lot of noise. I don't know who it is. I wish there was a way to be able to tell where the noise was coming from.
I think, Prabhu, I think one thing you can do, you can click on participants and you can look at the microphones, and it shows the activity.
Click on participants. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and it'll show you the activity of everyone's microphones.
Yeah, almost everybody is.
Yikes.
Yeah, most of the devotees are muted.
Well, I see Gora's is wiggling. Now mine is, so when someone is talking, there's a black.
Ah, right. Yeah. Okay.
The
I
microphone logo there is.
Thank you.
Then there's 4 or 5 red ones.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
I was
the
muted.
bottom one has a logo, an icon, and then, okay, now that turned red.
Krishna
it stopped.
Chandra Prabhu.
Jai.
And what's coming up, I want to say, Sarvabhauma is going to edit the Vedas. He's going to change the books.
Wow.
And then Lord Chaitanya gets him off the hook. It's coming up.
Okay.
Gopinath Acharya. It was Gopinath, not Chandrasekhar. Lord Chaitanya stated Chandrasekhar Sanskrit as Gopinath Acharya, I think was related to Bhattacharya.
Oh.
Everything's going cuckoo now.
I'm trying to get back. Okay, there you go, Krishna Chandra.
Okay,
All right,
make it
I
big
can look
there.
at that. Okay. It is said that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya composed 100 verses in appreciation of the Lord's activities, and that those verses were so great that they could not even be surpassed by Brihaspati, the greatest learned scholar in the heavenly planets. The Lord was very pleased to hear these 100 verses, and he embraced Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya became overwhelmed with ecstasy by the Lord's touch, and he practically fell unconscious. He cried, trembled, shivered, and perspired, and sometimes he danced and sang and fell at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Bhattacharya's brother-in-law, Gopinath Acharya, and the devotees of the Lord were surprised to see Bhattacharya transformed into a great devotee.
That was your short one. You want to read another?
Jai. Gopinath Acharya then began to thank the Lord. It is by your grace only that Bhattacharya has been transformed from his stone-like position into such a devotee. Lord Chaitanya then replied to Gopinath Acharya that it was due to a devotee's favor that a stone-like man could be transformed into a mild, flower-like devotee. Actually, Gopinath Acharya had sincerely wished that his brother-in-law Bhattacharya would become a devotee of the Lord. He had sincerely desired that the Lord favor Bhattacharya, and he was glad to see that his desire was fulfilled by Lord Chaitanya. In other words, a devotee of the Lord is more merciful than the Lord himself. When a devotee desires to show his mercy to a person, the Lord acts, and by his grace, one becomes a devotee.
So I have a special request of everyone here that you please desire to Lord Chaitanya on my behalf that I may become a devotee. I remember when I first read this about Gopinath Acharya, when I did my first reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was really touched by how, because of the kindness of Gopinath Acharya, it had a very favorable effect on Lord Chaitanya towards Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. I thought that was really cool. Should never underestimate the favor of the Lord's devotees, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. Nandapatni, do you want to read the next two? They're short.
Okay. Lord Chaitanya pacified Bhattacharya and asked him to go home. Bhattacharya again began to praise the Lord and said, "You have descended yourself to deliver all the fallen souls of this material world. Such an undertaking is not very difficult for you, but you have turned a stone-hearted man like me into a devotee, and that is very wonderful indeed. Although I was very expert at logical arguments and grammatical explanations of the Vedas, I was as hard as a lump of iron, but your influence and temperature was so great that you could melt away a piece of iron like me." Lord Chaitanya then returned to his place, and Bhattacharya sent Gopinath Acharya to him with various kinds of prasad from Jagannath temple. The next day, the Lord went to the temple of Jagannath early in the morning to attend Mangal Arati. The priests in the temple brought him a garland for the deity and also offered him various kinds of prasad. The Lord was very much pleased to receive them, and he at once went to the house of Bhattacharya, taking the prasad and the flowers to present to him. Although it was early in the morning, Bhattacharya understood that the Lord had come and was knocking on his door. Just imagine. He at once rose from his bed and began to say, "Krishna, Krishna." This was heard by Lord Chaitanya. When Bhattacharya opened the door, he saw the Lord standing there. And he was so pleased to see him early in the morning that he tried to receive him with all care. He offered him a nice seat, and both of them sat there. Lord Chaitanya then offered him the prasad, which he had received in the temple of Jagannath, and Bhattacharya was very glad to receive this prasad from the hands of Lord Chaitanya himself. Indeed, without taking his bath and without performing his daily duties or even washing his teeth, he began immediately to eat the prasad. In this way, he was freed from all material contamination and attachment. And as he began to eat the prasad, he cited the verse from the Padma Purana. In Padma Purana, it's stated that when prasad is brought or received, it must be eaten immediately, even if it has become very dry or old, or even if it is brought from a distant place, or even if one has not completed executing his daily duties. Since it is enjoined in the Shastras that prasad should immediately be taken, there is no restriction of time and space. The order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be followed. There are restrictions one must follow before accepting food from various people, but there are no restrictions on accepting prasad from all kinds of people. Prasad is always transcendental and can be taken under any condition. Lord Chaitanya was very pleased to see that Bhattacharya, who had always obeyed the rules and regulations strictly, accepted prasad without following any rules and regulations. Being so pleased, Lord Chaitanya embraced Bhattacharya, and they both began to dance in transcendental ecstasy. In that ecstasy, Lord Chaitanya exclaimed, "My mission in Jagannath Puri is now fulfilled. I have converted a person like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. I shall now be able to attain Vaikuntha without fail." Aha.
I'm assuming that everyone here has honored Jagannath Prasadam before. Is that true?
What you mean actually from Puri?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't actually been to Puri, sadly.
I pray that you'll make it in this
No
life.
one brought you Maha from Puri?
Well, I've been to Nilachala in Philadelphia. That's good enough for me because Jagannath
Yeah.
has eaten tons of
God,
Jagannath Mahaprasad in Philly.
He came to you.
I had the
there
good
is a-
fortune. I'm sorry. No, someone had
There-
brought it to me, a sannyasi. I was very honored.
What's the name of
there
that?
is a
The sweet flaky one.
Gaja.
Gaja.
God. And our first meeting with Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj, we went there to see him in 2015, I believe.
Can you say
Radharani
who
and-
he is? Can you say who he is, please? Because I'm not sure everyone knows who he is.
Prabhupada's godbrother Daita Madhava Maharaj has several famous disciples. One was Bhakti Bhagavatirtha Maharaj, who became the Acharya of the mission. And the other one was Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj. And when I met him, I believe he was, about 90 years old. He was in the advanced age. And he brought from Puri, he had brought prasadam. And that's those to Delhi, because there was a 75th anniversary of that mat being founded. And they even had a Rath Yatra festival, like, they had carts, pull. So we approached him, we had darshan and like that, and he pulled his little bundle of gaja, and which are this sweet crackers, like flaky sweet, and immediately everybody was honoring right away. And in the story of Bhattacharya, now we heard what happens, but then the king Puttaparudra sees the whole group of devotees from Bengal, and he's Bhattacharya. He says, how come the devotees are not following rules of, like, when you come to a pilgrimage, you must shave your head and take bath. There's certain rituals that have to be followed, but they all went to see Lord Chaitanya. They're all and they're being welcomed. And so Bhattacharya explains the difference of Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti out of spontaneity. So it's like me. He said, when I was in bed and Lord Chaitanya came, it was 6 a.m. or something, and he gave me prasad. Immediately I ate it.
Your voice is sort of breaking up. Vijay Gauranga has.
I knew Bhakti Bharati Maharaj when I stayed in Madhav Maharaj's mutt in 1970. So how old would he be then? And when he was a little boy, a bag of cement fell on his chest. So he had a heart condition his whole life. Some months, after a few months, he would always go into his room for a few days and say, "Where's Bharati Maharaj? He's having a heart problem. And he lived to 92.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
He was the
So-
I'm going to speak about that. I spoke about him on the Guru Purnima Zumathon.
Yes,
Last.
I heard it today. I finally got the link from Tridandi, and
88,
you were
80
buddy.
hours. It's a world record for any Zoom program. 80 hours.
Can someone share that link?
Wow.
I'd love to see that.
174.
It's on YouTube,
I
and
can
there are
listen.
many Guru Purnimas on YouTube. So put in Guru Purnima
I got it.
2021.
I'm putting it in. I'm going to put it right now in the box.
Sure.
So everyone in the chat.
You have to write it in a certain way.
Oh, by the way, but I
This is
sent
what-
you
this
today
is
an
what
email
Hari-
with all.
Hari sent this to me. I'm sending it right. It's the one where
So
Acyutananda is speaking.
it's on, okay, but there's 80 hours more. I only got half an hour, but they've invited me back on the 12th and the 18th to give it in full because I had to rush through it. I told them, I said, I lost a pint of blood and I left out some to the group because I was listening to the others. They were disciples of Bharati Maharaj, disciples of Vigyan, Vaibhav Puri Maharaj. I said, oh, I knew them. You know. So it was a little hard.
Yes.
So if you go to the end of that, that's connecting you to YouTube. And when you go to the end, then probably the next one will come up. It's 1 through, I think, 11 parts. Some of them is 7 hours
Oh,
of speakers from the whole world.
awesome.
You mentioned Gora, this other Gora, or what was it? No, an explanation of about his guruship. I'm trying to find my notes here.
Excuse me, what do I do if I go to YouTube? I'm typing in Guru Purnima 2021 and they got, the art of living, astrology.
Okay, I was just about to tell you.
Excuse me.
$1.40. I'm going to charge $1.40 for every interruption. You put in Guru Purnima and then in numbers 2021 and
Yeah.
then in a parenthesis put in 1
One.
and that'll be us. Or if you have somebody sent you that, then at the end of that, it'll connect you to the big screen of YouTube videos. One of them will be the next one.
Does it say Kala Shri?
I don't know.
Shri Vakratunda Mahakaya. That's what I have. Guru Purnima 2021 and then 1 in brackets. And it's got some Mataji and pictures of Matajis and people in Nehru jackets and tablas. I don't think that's the same one.
You said Gora. You said Gora Purnim. You're meaning Guru Purnim.
Yeah,
It's Guru.
Done it? Okay.
it says Kala Shri, Guru Purnima, classical music.
The host is Yashodananda, and he has a team of maybe 50 people, devotees, and the speaker, also the host speaker, is a younger devotee, Yashoda.
Oh, Sadhguru's got a Guru Purnima, and Satya Sai Baba's got a Guru Purnima. Everyone's got a Guru Purnima.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
big.
happened to me. Okay,
Good luck.
$1.20. You go to the end of the video that you have, that someone linked to you.
Okay.
And that will be on YouTube. When you go to
Yeah,
the
the one-
end, the screen of all the YouTubes will come up, and one of them will be you'll probably see a lady's face, a devotee lady's face with our tilak, and it'll say 2 or it may say 8. There's about 11 segments on it. 80
Okay.
hours. Wow.
I see.
They
Okay.
planned on
Anyway-
72 hours, but it went on for another 6 hours.
I've left the link there so that's something for everyone to work with. Otherwise, it gets too complicated trying to find the exact one, but there it is. I'm sharing what Nurhari Prabhu shared with me. It's in the chat box. Okay, Acyutananda Prabhu, would you like to continue to do the honors here? If I can
Yeah,
find
I
it.
want to get to the part where Sarvabhauma edits the books.
You really like that part about the edited book editing.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
Right?
That's in
He likes the juicy.
that's in the diminished key, you know. That's in the diminished mode. Flatter
just
than
wondering-
minor.
I'm
Flatter than when somebody a bluesman in New York said, "Hey Chuck, what's diminished?" I said, "Da da da da, da 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 da."
Oh,
All minor. Our Samsaradava, the morning raga, is all minor. Samsaradava nalalita loka. That's the Bhairavi morning raga. And it's so amazing because you don't wake somebody up like an alarm clock. This sounds so sad, but no, it's a waking up. You gently wake up. Tranaya karunya ghana ganatvam. Every interval is minor. The
interesting.
missionary goal of a devotee is to convert simply one person to a pure devotee, into a pure devotee.
Okay, wait a minute. I
This
got a
way-
question. I got a question.
Ah!
Why is Lord Chaitanya saying, I shall now be able to attain Vaikuntha without fail? Why isn't he saying I shall be able to attain Krishna Loka and the Rasa Leela dance? How come he's not saying that?
Yes, that's what somebody asked me about the Shikshashtakam, especially Nam Namakari Bahudan. I have no taste for it. Why is Lord Chaitanya saying I have no taste for the name? Is it because Lord Chaitanya is going in stages, presenting all the stages of a devotee? First, Chaito Darpanamarjanam, then do Sankirtan, then you have to develop a taste, then you develop an attachment. There are eight verses, and they represent the 8 stages of bhakti: Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya. Then
Anartha-nivritti.
comes Anartha Nivriti, and then Nishtha, determination. Then Ruchi, you get to
Asakti.
develop a taste for it, then attachment. Which comes first, Asakti or Ruchi?
Ruchi.
Ruchi,
Some
Asakta,
say that.
what?
Adau Shadatat.
Some say that one comes first.
Adau Shadatat.
You're both talking at the same time. You owe him $1.40. Now, you're both talking at the same time. Which comes first, Ruchi
I'm
or
trying to
Asakti?
recite the verse because it's in there. Adau Shraddha Tata Sadhusanga Jabhajana Kriya Tato Narta Ruchistata.
Ruchi. Then Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. And these also in the Bhajana Rahasya of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it also says these are each pair of names. So there's 16 names. Each pair of names represents, so there's 8 pairs, represents one of these. Hare Krishna is Shraddha, Hare Krishna, the second one is Bhajana Kriya, Sadhu Sangha, so on, up to Prema. And also each of these represents the 8 Ashtakaliya Leela periods of Lord Krishna's eternal Leela. So someone said, well, why did you say I have no anurakti? I had no taste for this. I'm not attached. Because he's playing the part of the devotee. So he says, okay, now I'll be liberated. In the Ramanandi Ramananda Roy, sung by Lord Chaitanya, says, please go on. I'm just a Mayavadi sannyasi. Teach me about Krishna consciousness. So, and then look, Ramananda Roy then responds, I'm only saying what's coming out from you. You are putting it in me. You are the puppet master pulling the strings.
Or
So
he
Lord-
sent
in other words-
Pradyumna.
Sorry. I'm
He
just
sent
trying to get my,
Pradyumna.
yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just
Oh,
trying to
that's just-
understand I'm trying to get clarity on my question. So Lord Chaitanya is trying to show himself to be like a conditioned soul. That's why
Yes.
he's saying Vaikuntha and not Rasa Leela or Goloka Vrindavan.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Right.
And Sarvabhauma just became converted from Mayavad to Krishna consciousness. So he's a beginner.
Okay. Hari,
Yeah.
Prabhu, you have
And-
something to add?
Yeah, two things. I mean, also within Vaikuntha is the highest planet, isn't it? So Maharaj would explain, Narayan Maharaj would explain also that the Shikshastakam, 4 verses are one state. The last 4 verses are actually Radharani speaking.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can treat me, what was it? You can
Yeah.
You can handle me roughly by
you
your
can
hand,
crush me with
Yes,
your
handle me roughly by your embrace.
make me
Yeah.
brokenhearted by never
Yes.
being
Yeah.
present before me.
yeah.
You completely
But you'll
treat
be my
me
Lord
anything and
birth after
everything.
birth.
You're always my worshipful Lord.
Unconditionally. Unconditionally.
So who's repeating the first 4 verses if Radharani repeats the last 4 in the Shikshastaka?
Well, it's like Prabhu was explaining. They saw that it's actually Mahaprabhu, but he's assuming all the different stages. Like it's like Arjuna. I'm confused. I don't know, but it's Narayan, isn't it? So it is actually Lord taking the part of the devotee, because it's like that. Many times in his pastimes, you can see that in Chaitanya Charitamrita how he plays both, you know. So when Ramachandra Bharati came, he was so critical of Lord Chaitanya, and you all know the pastime when
Ramachandra
he would Ramachandra Puri, I'm sorry, and he says, "Oh, this sannyas, you know, I see ants. Somebody was eating sweets last night," and so, and then Lord Chaitanya cuts his eating, you know, in half and like that.
Yes.
So,
And then Damodar Swarup said, "But Mahaprabhu, you don't take much already." He said, "But then half of that."
and devotees felt like some bricks fell on their heads. You know, they were all like lamenting because when everybody would invite Lord Chaitanya to eat, but
And Ramachandra Puri only stayed for 2 years, and when he left, everybody was very happy that they could then
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya again.
right. And
I want
when-
to let me finish. Where did I leave off?
There's just
There's
before
Brother
the
Chaitanya.
but it was
final conversion. Who did this painting? Was this Jadharani that did this?
Looks like
Anyone know?
it looks like a Jadharani.
Baba Trini,
No,
do
I
you know?
think it's Parikit.
Yeah.
Oh,
This one here, Baba.
I don't know. I think it's like Marie said.
No, I think it's Parikit.
Okay. You're the experts. Okay, so Acyutananda Prabhu, where are
let me finish. Where's
okay, the missionary goal of the book.
the missionary goal of a devotee is to convert simply one person into a pure devotee. In this way, his admission into the spiritual kingdom is guaranteed. The Lord was so pleased with Bhattacharya that he began to bless him repeatedly. Dear Bhattacharya, now you are a completely pure devotee of Lord Krishna, and Krishna is now very much pleased with you. From today, you are freed from the contamination of this material body and the entanglement of material energy. You are now fit to go back to Godhead, back home. The Lord then cited a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Yesham sa eva bhagavan dayayed anantaha sarvat manasrita pado yadi nirvya yalikam te dushtaram atitaranticha devamayam naisha mamaham iti dihi swa srigala Bakshe. Whoever takes complete shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is favored by the Supreme Lord, though who is known to be unlimited. Such a person also receives permission to cross the ocean of nescience. However, one who thinks the material body to be himself cannot receive the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Well, now we have our secret agent here who has arrived from Pakistan. Nitya Leela Devi Dasi, she's come. Would you like to read the next two? Because it's just a short paragraph, Nitya Leela. After this incident.
After this incident, Lord Chaitanya returned to his place and Bhattacharya became a pure and faultless devotee. Since he was formerly a great academic scholar, Bhattacharya could only have been converted by the causeless mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. From that day forward, Bhattacharya never explained any Vedic literature without explaining devotional service. Gopinatha Acharya, his brother-in-law, was so pleased to see Bhattacharya's condition that he began to dance in ecstasy and vibrate the transcendental song Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. The next day, after visiting Jagannatha temple early in the morning, Bhattacharya went to visit Lord Chaitanya and he offered his respects by falling down before the Lord. He then began to explain his past undesirable behavior. When he asked the Lord to speak something of devotional service, the Lord began to explicitly explain the verses of Brahma Naradya Purana, in which it is stated, Haranama, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 17.21. Upon hearing this explanation, Bhattacharya became more and more ecstatic. Seeing the condition of his brother-in-law, Gopinatha Acharya said, My dear Bhattacharya, previously I had said that when one is favored by the Supreme Lord, he will understand the techniques of devotional service. Today I am seeing this fulfilled.
Thank you. Dvija Garanga Prabhu, Bhattacharya offered him.
Bhattacharya offered him due respect and replied, My dear Gopinath Acharya, it is through your mercy that I have received the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be obtained by the mercy of a pure devotee. Lord Chaitanya's mercy was bestowed upon Bhattacharya because of Gopinath Acharya's endeavor. You are a great devotee of the Lord, Bhattacharya continued, and I was simply blinded by my academic education. Yes, I have obtained the mercy of the Lord through your agency only. Lord Chaitanya himself was greatly pleased to hear Bhattacharya say that a man can obtain the mercy of the Lord through the agency of a devotee. He appreciated his words and embraced Bhattacharya, confirming his statement. Can we go back? There's one statement Nitya Leela read, the first or second line.
Which paragraph?
One more back. Yes, so, and Bhattacharya became a pure and faultless devotee. Since he was formerly a great academic scholar, Bhattacharya could only have been converted by the causeless mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I find that quite interesting. Because he was formerly a great academic scholar, the implication is he couldn't have been, because of that qualification, he could not have been converted other than by that. That's the implied. I don't know. What do you think? Anybody?
In other words, you're saying it was a disqualification, a greater disqualification to be a great academic scholar.
It seems to be implied. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, because Kunti Devi says, what is that verse? Oh, gee, it's rusty in my head. Oh, please help me out here. Kunti says, Jainmaishvarya Shrutashri Bir Edamana Madak Kuman Naivarti Abitatung Vai Vam Akinchana Gocharam. So Janma, birth, one who has high birth, Aishvarya, material wealth, Shruta, high education, like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, or Shri Bir, bodily beauty. Kunti Devi is saying these are all disqualifications for advancing in devotionals, that one may become diverted by their good karma. You want to comment on that, Acyutananda Prabhu?
Well, Bhattacharya wouldn't accept it from someone that wasn't a high pundit. And Lord Chaitanya is using his nyaya He was a famous
Logic. Logician.
logician and taught the whole Navadvip he was in. And then he defeated, he used that same technique when he defeated Keshav Kashmiri, who wrote 100 spontaneous. Look at the brains on these people. Keshav Kashmiri's, and they like a David and Goliath. They put Keshav Kashmiri's come to challenge. So that let's send young Nimai. I think he was only 10 years old, or maybe 14 years old at the time. Let's send him. And Keshav Kashmiri immediately composes 100 verses to praise the Ganges. And Lord Chaitanya picked out little connotations of words, little semantic things. And I'm not anti-semantic, but Lord Chaitanya used that. So now he's using it after he comes back from Gaya. When he comes back from Gaya, he interpreted everything to be Krishna. We know that whole story. And his students said, well, how are we going to become famous stand-up? There were stand-up entertainers in Pandits. I saw some of them, and they could speak for hours, telling stories and then making little jokes. And it was so silly.
You're pretty good at that yourself, though.
No,
I would
and
say.
so it would take someone like Mahaprabhu to convert Sarvabhauma. He wouldn't respect anybody lower.
Okay.
No.
Jivan Mukta Prabhu. Want to continue?
And Shankaracharya uses the same thing to pervert everything into something goofy, into Mayavad.
We have to actually go on separate to message these contact her. Yeah.
We finished this one, right? Confirming his statement. I think we're starting on. Are we starting on this one? The Lord requested.
The small one. Yeah, the small one.
The Lord then requested Bhattacharya to go to Jagannath's temple again. And Bhattacharya started out for the temple accompanied by Jagadananda and Damodar, two principal associates of Lord Chaitanya. After seeing Jagannath temple, Bhattacharya returned home and brought with him much prasad purchased from the temple. He sent all this prasad to Lord Chaitanya through his Brahmin servant.
Read the next one. That was short.
But did he have more of a question there?
Did who have a question? I'm not following.
Should I read the next?
Hello?
Should I
Yes,
read?
please.
He also dispatched 2 verses written on palm tree leaves and requested Jagadananda to render him a favor by delivering them. Thus, Lord Chaitanya was offered the prasad and the verses on the palm leaves. However, before reaching the Lord, Mukunda Datta, who had also undertaken the delivery of the verses, had copied the verses in his book. When Lord Chaitanya read the verses on the palm leaf, he tore them to pieces, for he never liked to be praised by anyone. The verses only survived because they had been copied by Mukunda Datta. These verses praised the Lord, the Supreme Original Personality of Godhead, who had descended as Lord Chaitanya to preach detachment, transcendental knowledge, and devotional service to the people in general. Lord Chaitanya was praised as the original personality of Godhead and was compared with an ocean of mercy. Let me surrender unto that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the verses stated. The Lord, seeing that devotional service was absent, descended himself in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach devotional service. Let us all surrender unto his lotus feet and learn from him what devotional service actually is. These verses are considered to be most important jewels by the devotees of the Lord in disciplic succession. And by virtue of these famous verses, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has become known as the highest of devotees.
We're coming to a really important verse.
Who is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Krishna Lila again? Is he?
Who knows?
It's in Kavi
Does anyone know?
What was the
Who's
question again?
Who's Sarvabhauma? Is he Brihaspati?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Okay. Thus Sarvabhauma
Can I
Bhattacharya.
read?
Oh, go ahead.
I haven't read yet, so
Please,
if you don't mind.
Please.
Okay.
No, I want to progress.
I saw the verse. You're pretty excited because it's such an important, like you said, such an important verse coming up. Thus,
Yeah.
Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was converted into one of the most important devotees of the Lord, and he had no other interest than to serve the Lord. He thought of Lord Chaitanya constantly, and meditation and chanting became the main purpose of his life. One day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya came before the Lord, offered his respects, and began to read a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14a. This verse dealt with Lord Brahma's prayer to the Lord. The verse read, Tatenu kampam sushat mikshamano bunjana evatma kritam dipakam kritvag vapurvir vidadam namaste jivetayo muktipade sadayabak. A person who devotes his mind, body, and speech to the service of the Lord, even though in the midst of miserable life, fraught with past misdeeds, is assured of liberation. Bhattacharya changed the word mukti, liberation, to bhakti, devotional service.
Now, does anyone
Cool.
remember where this was actually spoken? Was it was it Krishna speaking to the gopis, or who?
They just told you that it's Brahma.
It was
This is
Lord
to
Brahma. Okay. Yeah.
Brahma's prayer. This is after he repented after stealing the cows,
Right.
the cowherd boys. But this is
And-
the verse where
Krishna-
he changed the books. He changed the books now.
That's what you're referring to. This is really nice
Here
passage
it comes.
too. Yeah.
Here it comes.
So in those prayers to Lord Krishna by Brahma, who's got, he could be the best of scholars. He is actually. Krishna would just be totally distracted looking at his friends, holding prasadam with his left hand. Okay,
I've always
a person who devotes his.
Go ahead.
Should I reread this thing? Because it's the verse.
Yes.
A person who devotes his mind, body, and speech to the service of the Lord, even though in the midst of a miserable life fraught with past misdeeds, is assured of liberation, unquote. Bhattacharya changed the word mukti, liberation, to bhakti, devotional service. He changed the books. That's what Acyuta was.
That's
how
where
we-
our editor.
Lawsuit.
But look what comes next.
That's where
Whoa.
our editors get inspiration from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya.
That's
Yeah.
more than
Yeah, but they're
that's
gonna
more,
get-
that's more than $1.40.
But they're gonna get it on the head. Look what comes next. Quote, why have you changed the original verse? The Lord asked Bhattacharya. I will scroll more lovingly. The Lord asked Bhattacharya. The word is mukti, and you have changed it to bhakti. Bhattacharya then replied that mukti is not as valuable as bhakti, and that mukti is actually a sort of punishment for the pure devotee. For this reason, he changed the word mukti to bhakti. Bhattacharya then began to explain his realization of bhakti. Quote, anyone who does not accept the transcendental personality of Godhead and his transcendental form cannot know the absolute truth, he said, unquote.
Yeah, I converted one Mayavadi in Calcutta, and he said, but the mundane sound is sound. There should be silence. I said, these are not mundane sounds, Hare Krishna and Rama. These are Shabda Brahma. They're transcendental sounds. And then he got
I
it.
love this.
And then the next day, he wrote a poem, and it said, break the silence. I was very happy that he got it.
From your chat from Guru Purnima at Achyuta Prabhu, your first meeting with Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj at Kesava Gaudiya Math, and he told you, do you remember?
Vaikuntha.
He told you, oh,
Vaikuntha.
material sounds, yeah, Vaikuntha sounds they produce, they have a different result than material sounds.
Yeah, the Narayan people are kind of disappointed that he didn't say Goloka. But I was a neophyte. I was only a devotee for a year.
Yeah, yeah. But what did Prabhupada said when he parted? You told that today. You brought me to tears.
I can't
He said,
understand you.
Prabhupada in 67. Yeah, in 67, you mentioned Prabhupada had this heart attack or stroke, and he's leaving.
It wasn't, okay, hold it. It was not a stroke. A stroke is a brain thing. When he had his heart attack,
yes,
he called me into his room, and his heart was just fluttering. It wasn't even a heart attack. It was a palpitation of fibrillation. And he told me, he was lying down, he told me to do like this sideways over his chest. And he called me back later that night also, and his heart was just fluttering. That's all. A stroke is a brain thing. And it is my opinion, they keep calling it a stroke to imply that Prabhupada had a brain problem and he wasn't really all there. And we'll tell you what Prabhupada really meant. They're using that.
Wow.
So don't say stroke no more. Take a vow that you will never say stroke.
Excellent insight.
I will. And
Yeah,
I
thank
heard
you.
this from Govinda Das. Govinda Dasi was the one that told me, oh, I think it was a stroke. He was, yeah, I think it's in the movie. But anyhow, it's not what I
Anyway,
wanted
they gave
to
when
say.
we went to the hospital, they gave him shots and needles and a spinal tap. And so his vision went goofy. And I was there. The doctor came the next day, and Prabhupada grabbed the doctor's hands and said, I feel okay. I want to go home.
Wow.
And
Was
then
that the time he said, no more needles?
And then Gargamuni and Brahmananda rescued him and brought him out, ran him down into an elevator and took him out.
On the gurney.
Yeah, told me the story. In the gurney, yes, and Gargamuni's running down the halls.
Oh, what a gurney it was. So that was the first Ratha Yatra.
Well, but I was coming to what you said today. Well, today, because I just heard it today. He said, Prabhupada, would I see you again? And what was it he said? We certainly will. I
will meet you again. We will meet again in Braja.
Yeah.
Jivan Mukta.
And you said, not India, Braja.
Now Lord Chaitanya gets Bhattacharya off the hook.
Jivan Mukta, you want to read the next paragraph?
Gaur Prabhu, I read just recently.
Okay, who wants to read?
Me.
Please.
One who does not understand the transcendental nature of the body of Krishna becomes Krishna's enemy and defies or fights with them. Prabhupada said that verse so strong, constantly. The enemies eventually merge into the Lord's Brahman effulgence. Such mukti or liberation into the Brahman effulgence is never desired by the Lord's devotees. There are 5 kinds of liberation: attaining the planet where the Lord resides, salokya; associating with the Lord, samipya; attaining the transcendental body of the Lord, sarupya; attaining the opulence like the Lord, sarishti; and merging into the existence of Lord, sayuja. A devotee has no particular interest in any of these types of liberation. He is satisfied simply by engaging by being engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. A devotee is especially adverse to merging into the existence of the Lord and losing his individual identity. Indeed, a devotee considers oneness with the Lord to be hellish. He will, however, accept one of the 4 other kinds of liberation in consideration for being engaged in the service of the Lord. Out of the 2 possibilities of merging in transcendence, namely becoming one with the impersonal Brahman effulgence and becoming one with the personality of Godhead, the latter is more abominable to the devotee. The devotee has no aspiration other than engaging in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is a short version of the full purport of Bhaktivinoda Thakur that Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita verse by verse, which says, the yogis who merge into Paramatma are more abominable because they see the form. They see the form of Paramatma. Yogis either the size of a thumb, and sometimes it says, we were trying to argue this, is it this much big or is it this much? But their Paramatma in the heart is bigger. And so they see that, but they refuse to do service. So boom, they get merged into, just like all the demons, they can merge into either Brahma Jyoti or Shishupal. Shishupal goes up to Brahma Jyoti and then comes down and enters into Dwarka Krishna's body. And there is a very interesting purport that changes. It says, therefore, we can consider that Shishupal was not Jayan Vijay, but a demon. I think that's in Adi 1. See, Krishna's Kaviraj put things, he put the Prakashananda in the first chapter, because he didn't know, he started writing Charitamrita in his 80s, and at the end he said, my hand is shaking, I can't. So he always thought, just like Prabhupada thought, he gave these books in advance, not knowing if he would live long enough. But then he went on living. So he did the complete Charitamrita and up to the few chapters of 10th canto even.
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami lived in 96 or something?
As you have said.
Okay. Nirhari Prabhu, we haven't heard from your better half. We've only been hearing from you. What about the better part of you?
How's your tooth?
Is she able to read?
Get a pair of these.
Is she
no problem.
Is she able to come?
He's gotten muted. Here's the part where Lord Chaitanya says it's okay.
Here we are. No, she was banged around by a cow, one of our cows.
Oh no!
And it threw, so it threw her body and buried, her neck. And so yesterday we went to chiropractor, and I worked on her too because I learned some healing arts. Anyhow, here she is.
Oh, good.
Right.
Okay, Baba Trini Mataji.
So you were fighting with a cow.
Yes.
Okay, here's your cue on hearing this.
On hearing this, Lord Chaitanya informed Bhattacharya that there is another purport to the word mukti. The word mukti pade directly indicates the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead has innumerable liberated souls engaged in his transcendental loving service. And he is the ultimate resort of liberation. In any case, Krishna is the ultimate shelter. Despite this reading,
keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Despite this reading, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, I prefer bhakti to mukti, although according to you, there are 2 meanings to the word mukti. Still, because this word is equivocal, I prefer bhakti to mukti, because when one hears the word mukti, he immediately thinks of becoming one with the Supreme. I therefore even hate to utter this word mukti. However, I am very enthusiastic to speak of bhakti. Lord Chaitanya laughed very loudly at this and embraced Bhattacharya with great love. Thus, Bhattacharya, who had taken pleasure in explaining Mayavadi philosophy, became such a staunch devotee that he even hated to utter the word mukti. This is only possible by the causeless mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya. The Lord is like a touchstone, for by his grace, he can turn iron into gold. After his conversion, everyone marked a great change in Bhattacharya, and they concluded that this change was made possible only by the inconceivable power of Lord Chaitanya. Thus, they took it for granted that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Lord Krishna himself.
Jai.
Then
Jai.
let's see if it says, because Lord Chaitanya then gets him off. Okay, in the verse by verse in the Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya says, well, mukti comes from Mukunda, the giver of mukti. So it's okay. He rectifies it, that even to change mukti, it still means Mukunda. So the verse in the Bhagavatam cannot be interpreted as Mayavad or as impersonal liberation.
Thank you.
So he said, even as the verse stands in the original mukti, it still means Krishna, Mukunda.
Nitya Leela, earlier, Acyutananda was speaking, Acyutananda Prabhu was speaking about Bhakti Pragya Keshava Maharaj. Do you know who that is? She does not know. See, we should not take for granted that when we're talking about these great personages that a younger devotee, like Nitya Leela just got initiated a few weeks ago. So sometimes it's helpful if you...
Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, who was called Keshari, he was a lion, was Prabhupada's, he took sannyas from Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. So he's his sannyas guru. And I was able to meet him in the last year of his life.
Nitya Leela, maybe Acyutananda Prabhu is the only Prabhupada disciple that met Prabhupada's sannyas guru. And was he very lion-like around you, or you didn't see him?
No, he was very ill at that time, but he was huge, and he's very amazing. There are a few pictures of him, and Prabhupada wanted them to send a photograph, and that Jadurani Shamarani would paint and have it hung in every temple to, kill the idea that Prabhupada is only. There will never be a book, The Philosophy of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. There can never be a book like that. The Thoughts of A.C. Bhaktivedanta. There will never be a book like that. That's why we said it before. Prabhupada would read his own books. He says, I'm not talking, this is Krishna talking back to me. I couldn't have done that.
In LA, he gave a lecture in the evening.
Yes.
And we were all there. The temple was packed. Anyhow, Prabhupada at the end of the lecture said, did you like that? I did. That was super soul.
Wow.
It's mind-blowing.
Prabhupada said that to you?
No, to the whole assembly. We were in class, evening class.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was Bhagavad Gita or I believe so. But it was just like what stayed in my mind. It was that. It was wow. We all went like stunned. Like.
That's similar to two things. Every time Prabhupada finished, he would say, any questions? And sometimes there were no questions. He said, put some question. You know everything? And then another time he gave such a complete lecture. He said, any questions? And he looked down at me and he said, how can there be any question?
So Bhakti Pragyan Kesava Maharaj was very famous in Bengal, especially in Navaji. And he was so, even the boatmen, they loved him. They all fought to give him a ride. He always paid them double. And so he was so clever. And no,
Okay,
you can't mess with him.
I'll tell the big story. Bhaktisiddhanta was doing a parikrama parade through Navadvip, and the Smarta Brahmins and the Sahajiyas were throwing bottles and bricks on them. They even were attempting to assassinate him. They had even gone,
Yes.
Prabhupada told me all this. They'd gone to the police and said, could you turn a blind eye because we're going to kill him tomorrow. And the police said, yes, we sometimes take a bribe for that, but not for sadhus. So they were just throwing bricks. And then Bhakti Pragyan Kesha Maharaj, what was his first name? His early name?
Keshari?
No.
Vinod.
Vinod Brahmachari.
Vinod Brahmachari, and he was dressed in white cloth. There we go. And he brings Bhaktisiddhanta into a favorable devotee's house and says, change clothes with me. Because you see, he's tall and fair. He looked like Bhaktisiddhanta a little, and he was tall. So he pulls Bhaktisiddhanta into a house. He says, change clothes with me. Give me your saffron. You wear my white. Give me that danda, and I'll continue. I'll be the decoy, and I'll walk the rest of the, and you can sneak away in white dress and get on a boat back to Mayapur. So it's kind of a prophecy that he would take sannyas.
Yeah.
Look, in that photo, in this
There's
photo,
Narayan.
you can see to the right of him is Narayan Maharaj,
Wow.
very young sannyas.
With the beard?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Must be
obviously it's Chaturmas.
Must be Chaturmasya. I wonder if we can tell who these others are. Madhav Maharaj would be able to tell us who they are.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. It was amazing. And you know the story of how he got Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's property back.
Oh, but
All the Muslims, they have put graves and they made a cemetery out of that parcel of land that he inherited from his father. I don't know if you can hear.
Yes.
Okay, and so overnight he was so popular, and he brought a bunch of local people that they brought trees, fruit trees. First they dug up all the graves, they threw them in the Ganga, and then brought in trees, jackfruit, mango, full grown trees. And the Muslims came next morning, saw that, and they were all freaking out. They went to the police and they said, look what happened. I said, no, this cannot be that a full forest, I mean, overnight, I mean, come on. So that way he got all that parcel where right now where the temple where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Samadhi is, and the hidden Radha Kund, there is the famous deity there. Was always there.
Mukunda Prabhu also
Mukunda.
told me that he was raising in big pots. He would raise a lot of trees in pots. And someone said, well, what are these? Yeah, I have some plan. Anyway, it was amazing. When he was a baby, when he was a baby in a basket, he was taken away by an eagle.
Yes.
You know that
And
story?
his nickname, when he was little, his nickname was Jonah.
Who are we speaking about right
Okay.
now?
Bhakti Pragyan Kesha
Hey,
Maharaj.
okay, because you mentioned Mukunda. All right, thank you.
So
He was carried away by an
was-
eagle
Yes.
as a
It's in
baby.
his biography. Sri Narayana Maharaj wrote a biography of his spiritual master, Bhattacarya Kesava Maharaj. And it's fantastic. His family, they were zamindars. He was very wealthy. And so his father had passed away. His mother was passing away. And Bhaktisiddhanta was going to send him back to his home. But he hid in the mat. He hid away. And he said, when he was found, Bhaktisiddhanta asked him to come. He said, why you don't want to go? He said, I know that I cannot disobey the order of my mother. If I go there now, she will make me the owner of all this land. I will have to remain and attend all this grihastha, material life. So he says, I wander through many millions of lives to come to your lotus feet. How can I lose that opportunity now?
Oh.
Sorry, my phone died. Yours dying. Is that I travel throughout millions of forms of life. I've been forever searching for you. Now that I come at your lotus feet, how can I leave them? So he refused to go.
He said that to Bhakti.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
He was hiding. They came to look for him. They came to ask him to come. His mother was passing away, and even above the guru's word is the mother's word. And Bengal is like Vedic culture is like that. So if the mother asks you to do something, so Bhattacarya Kesava Maharaj knew that if he went home, his old home, that he will be asked by his mother to take over the whole thing. He was a great zamindar or landowner.
Nityalila, I'm wondering if you, Divija Garanga, Jiva Mukta, if any of you have any if you have any questions or any final comments before it's almost 10 o'clock here.
No, just thank you so much for this nectar. Just ecstatic story, wonderful stories.
I was feeling some separation from you, Acyutananda. I was like, oh no, he's not going to be here. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah, I got
I know.
You made it.
Another private Zoom talk from somebody in London and took a while.
Nityalila, was there anything we discussed tonight that you needed clarification on or comment, question from you? Are you good? How's everything going in Pakistan? Or is your brother going to Balochistan to distribute more books in Urdu and Sindh? And it's mostly Sikhs there that he preaches to?
No, actually, book stocks are not being available at the moment, but he is conducting teaching programs, Bhakti Vraksha programs. Prasadam distribution is being done, but it is not only Balochistan but all across Pakistan, like other provinces of Pakistan, interior Sindh, and he is also exploring more areas to include. I have suggested him to also go to Punjab, because Punjab side we are having a Sikh community and other sects living. Punjab has not been that much tapped earlier, so could be a new venture.
Very nice. Go to when Prabhupada was in Amritsar, when he saw the Sikhs making thousands of chapatis off this big tava. Now they have a machine, but I think at that time it was like an upside down wok. He said, our own ISKCON devotees, we should learn from the Sikhs how to do massive prasadam distribution.
Yeah, I did that in Madhav Maharaj's Mud in Mayapur. There's a big, like a campfire. Then they put a big wok over it, karai, and then you put the rolled chapatis, you put it on the hot, and then you take them off and you put them under into the fire. And then you have a long iron rod and you go and take them out. And the iron rod acts like fire. It doesn't act like that's a joke. And so there were like little swords, and then they would blow up, and everyone came up perfect because the heat was so evenly distributed.
Uh,
So it was fun. So they let me cook.
I'm sorry, Vijagaranga, we didn't have time to read because that's a little bit of a.
That's okay. I wasn't meant that I had to read it all. Just for anyone who wants to.
Can you sum it up? Can you just say what it is?
Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking about controversy between the Smartas and the what word does he use? He's always using amazing different words for different things. Anyway, for the real transcendentalists as opposed to the Smartas, the controversy about whether Mahaprasadam should be taken inside the temple or not inside the temple, or 10 miles away or not 10 miles away. Anyway, he talks about different things which was kind of related to that nice pastime of when Sarvabhauma accepted the Mahaprasad and cited the verse afterwards. So it just brought that to mind because it was recently posted. So that I just gave that connection on the chat box if anyone's interested to read it.
Yeah, it's a little bit long. It doesn't completely fit on the page, unfortunately. I've got it here.
I'll just put it in for anyone interested on their own if they want to read it. Conclusion
is that the Mahaprasad of Sri Jagannath Dev should not be taken 10 miles out of Puri. Should not be.
No, that's part of the discussion.
Oh,
part of the discussion.
The smart,
yeah, the smart perspective.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. You have to read the whole thing in context. If you just pick out a little piece, you be careful. It'll be more than $1
Can add on some seeds to that.
Utkalakanda, which book is that? Utkalakanda.
Maybe Mahabharata, because that's divided into kandas, but I don't know.
Right.
But kanda, it
Sounds
could be
like
even, could be a Jagannath Puri's
Land Puri, which is 10 miles in circumference, stretches into the sea. 6 miles of it is situated on the Tirtha Raj, great ocean, surrounded by golden sand and beautified by a blue mountain. That prasadam, which is present of Vishnu, does not become contaminated even if it is touched by one who has fallen. It is of the same nature as Vishnu himself. Widows who perform austerities, people of all varnas and ashrams, those who are qualified to perform Agnihotra sacrifices, those from this country or foreigners, they are considered equal, even if one attains it and it is stale, dry, or it has come from a distant land. Whatever the case, it can eradicate all pop.
How about the next little line?
Even if touched by the lips of a dog. Well, best of the Brahman. This is from the what? The Kriya Yoga Sara. I wonder who wrote that. Kriya Yoga Sara. Well, best of the Brahmins. The city known as Purushottam is on the shore of the salt ocean, and it is more difficult to attain even than Svarga. All those who enter this place achieve a form like that of Vishnu. Those who have any doubt need not to be concerned about this. Even if the food there has been touched by a Chandala, it should be accepted by higher persons. Since that food is not different from Vishnu himself, the Chandala there is considered to be like a Brahmin.
I believe this article was written after someone expressed their opinion in a Bengali newspaper publication. So it inspired Bhaktivinoda to address it.
Who is Vidya Ratna Mahashai? Who is that?
Chandrasekhar.
Vidya is who?
He has, I believe it's Chandrasekhar. Vidya.
It says he'll never welcome Vidya. It says Sarvabhauma will never welcome Vidya Ratna Mahashai's conclusion concerning Maha.
Okay, no, that's somebody else. There's somebody else. Sorry.
I think it might be the
Acharya
person who
Ratna is
expressed
the
his
one.
Smarta opinion. It's a Smarta opinion, I believe.
Yes, sorry.
He never expected the Pramartikas to be included in his community. The point is that such a conclusion need not be seen in public, published in a newspaper. Is there any necessity to cause a dispute between the Smarta and Paramarta communities? However, anyhow, it must be said that this is the age of Kali by causing useless debates concerning Mahaprasadam by arranging for the slaughter of monkeys in the temple of Sri Purushottam and defecating in the temple vicinity. This has become a leela for some people who only wish to bother the devotees. It's
And
pretty
this
clear.
reminds me of Talmudic
Reminds you of what?
rabbis that argue. And there was one rabbi centuries ago, and he called his commentary the table commentary. And his enemy rabbi said, and my commentary is the tablecloth that goes over the table. I mean, that's how they would argue.
Oh, God.
So they're like Smarta Brahmins.
You know, the etiquette we were staying in Chakratirtha, where Sri Narayana Maharaj, these people donated a whole hotel, and they turned into, that's when we went and his final pastimes occur. But we always were able to get big quantities of Mahaprasad from Lord Jagannath. And the etiquette is after you eat, you know, when you take a regular prasadam, is that you rinse your mouth and you spit out. But when you take Maha from Lord Jagannath, you switch your mouth with water, but you swallow it.
This is what Jesus was. This is called takanat. Takanat means traditions. The rabbis had made up so many traditions that you would have to do a sacrifice or pay a fine. So they were exploiting. And that's why Jesus said none of this. Because one of the things was the rabbis in Jesus' time, they had a rule. You had to put on your right shoe first, but don't tie it. Then you put on your left shoe and tie it. Then go back and tie the right shoe. They made up all these rules. Now, there are all kinds. This is in the Vedic culture, though. There's for each demigod. There's volumes of books on etiquette and how to accept prasadam and how to offer things to Indra and Agni and Surya. There's all to get some. These are all rehearsals ultimately to worship Krishna. Because in the process, you'll see that the son is disciple of Krishna. Agni does this, and Surya does that, and Indra, oh boy. Then you see they're all subordinate to Krishna. I think Jesus was a Vaishnava. They cut it all out. I think they took it all out. I think he came from it. He either went to India and came back to preach, or because I told before, there's a Eisinger historian who says that the Essene Jews in Israel or Judea wore a red line on their forehead.
Wow.
Now, that's nothing in Judaism. I think they weren't even Jew. They were probably some faraway version of Ramanuja. Some Ramanuja went there and preached Krishna consciousness to them.
Awesome.
Well, I wanted to ask you, there's a few things that are interesting. Acyutananda Prabhu, you probably heard this, but this is a morning conversation with Srila Prabhupada, and where he mentions the Aquarian Gospel. There is a book where he tells that Jesus went to Jagannath Puri, and actually we heard that his name is engraved, the registers, as a student. So 14 years, because 14 years of his life are nobody knows. There's no record.
All of a sudden,
there's no record.
He shows up and he's 30. That's when the Gospels begin or continue. And the gospel. There's 27 Gospels, and each one has very different versions of Jesus' life.
Yeah.
He's a
Also,
carpenter. He's a carpenter. He's in the line of David, so he's king, and he's a rabbi. Well, what's going on?
yeah, yeah.
They go to Egypt and come back from Egypt, and
Well, there is also, they said, like, well, actually, if you study in the Old Testament, in the story of Noah and the flood, before the flood, he tells his sons about that what's coming. And so they say to him, why don't we go back to our ancestral land? They point to the east. What is that? India.
okay. Yeah.
Some said it's Kashmir. I saw a whole documentary on about Kashmir, and they do have a tomb of Isha, the saint, and it's apparently a traditional Judaic tomb. But if you look at the physiognomy of the people of the area, they look very Semitic, very much so.
Then there's the Sumerians right in the middle, and they say Mount Ararat was in another place, and Mount Sinai is another place. Then Constantine's mother said, no, I say it's in Arabia, and nobody would disagree with Constantine's mother, or you get killed. And the Sumerians have another famous, they say there that Moses, the Mount Sinai is with them. They have a different name. I forget it. It's a nice name, but they're very strange. They've been inbred so long now that all of the Sumerians are all inbred and deformed.
Wow.
And they're very rich. They're very wealthy, but nobody will marry them.
Right.
They'll probably die out.
It was down throughout all, cultures too, that to marry in families to keep fortunes, Gargamuni told me a story one time that Prabhupada called him late night, and he said, oh, I heard news from my godbrother that actually the Jews are coming from India. They came from India. You ever heard of this?
Dweja is making noise. Okay, Dweja's microphone is making noise.
Probably my fan. Sorry, I'll mute.
Yeah, I'm looking at the icons.
Okay. My question to you, maybe if you heard or not, you ever asked Prabhupada, but Gargamuni told me one time that we were traveling through America, collecting for Mayapur Chandradoya, and he said, oh, Prabhupada called me late night in Los Angeles, and he told me, he said, I have great news for you. Actually, the Jewish people are descendants from the Yadu dynasty, that they're coming from India.
Yes.
Yeah. But so in 2018, I came to, I go, whenever I went to Vrindavan, I try to meet him, Gargamuni. And so I went to see him, and he was in a real funny state, very critical. And when I mentioned the story, I said, you told me this one time. He said, oh, Prabhupada wanted to please the Jews. Most of the devotees that were joining, they were Jewish. So, he just wanted to, encourage them. And then he said, oh, actually, Prabhupada didn't like the Jews. He thought they were very greedy. I never heard of that one before.
So I've got a story to tell then in this connection. Not that I wanted to stay up this late, but I'm fired up. Okay, so back in the 1980s, I started 3 university clubs: University of Toronto Vedic Cultural Society, McMaster University Vegetarian Cooking Club, and the York University Vegetarian Society, whatever. And the York University and University of Toronto were both about 50,000 students, and they're mostly all Jewish kids. So I just stopped people on the street. Excuse me, we're trying to start a club here on campus. We just need a few signatures. I got the papers from the university. I handed in the papers, and they said, okay, you're a club in 2 weeks. So then I was given a free space in the Sidney Smith building, which is student faculty area with tons of students passing by. And I set up a table with Prabhupada's books, and these Jewish kids would come by and, well, what's this? And I said, well, you've heard about how the Jews are the chosen people of God, right? And they'd say, yeah. And I'd say, so according to these ancient wisdom books of India, they were called the Jadu dynasty, Jadu, Judah, it's like it's really close. And I said, so if you read these books and you chant this Hare Krishna mantra, you'll become a better Jew. So then the students would go back to the Rabbi Moshe Silverman, the head rabbi at the Jewish Student Union, and they would say, yeah, we met this guy named Gora, and he's telling us we'll become better Jews. And the rabbi freaked out, and he organized Cult Awareness Week. And in the student newspaper that went out to 50,000 students, he wrote, if you meet I was around 30 years old at the time. If you meet a young man on campus and he seems to have an answer to all of your questions and he's really friendly and invites you to a free vegetarian dinner, be careful. You've met a dangerous cult member from the Hare Krishnas. They have these mind-controlling powers. And if you even look in their eyes, they'll be able to mind control you and brainwash you. So I noticed after that article appeared, the kids on campus, they'd see me and they'd be like, I could see there was some fear in their eyes. So I went to the editor of the varsity, the student newspaper. I said, could I have equal time since you gave the rabbi time? I'd like to write a rebuttal. And they said, okay, well, we're not going to take sides with you. I brought them some cauliflower pakoras and some tamarind chutney I made, and I kind of made pals with them. And they said, okay, we'll give you free time. And the title of my article was, When the Persecuted Become the Persecutors. And I said, we've all heard the horrible things about the Holocaust. And one would think that the Jewish people would have great empathy for others. But rather, we see how the Rabbi Moshe Silverman has denigrated the great Vedic culture of India. I have a son. Maybe one day I would like him to walk down the hallways of the University of Toronto, holding his head high for being a Vaishnav. But what the rabbi has spoken would be equivalent to anti-Semiticism. And if I were to make such derogatory remarks about Jewish people as he has made about the Vaishnavas of Krishna, I'd have 10 Jewish lawyers down my throat suing me. And so then the rabbi, he further came back and he organized Cult Awareness Week. So I just went in plain clothes to his table, and there was a lot of students visiting his table. And I said, do you have anything on the Hare Krishnas? And he said, yeah. And he handed me this article from Rolling Stone magazine entitled Dial Om for Murder.
For murder.
There's two rabbi. One is Rabbi Tovia Singer today, young, very nice, but they're really worried because the Christians are especially targeting Jews in Israel to convert to Jesus. They even got a license, which was very rarely given. So they wonder if the government is behind it. And they have a Christian television show in Hebrew, and he's very worried. I wonder if the Yadus would ever change and also kill cow, though.
Right. Yeah.
You could say that at the beginning.
So the last part of my little story was that I ordered Prabhupada's 5 main books. They were called the Grand Classics of India, the Bhagavan Prabhu put out, Krishna book, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita. And what were the other two? Krishna book, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Nectar of Devotion. And I ordered them in Hebrew just for the rabbi, just so he could see that, Hare Krishnas have a lot of culture, there's wisdom. And then the rabbi organized Cult Awareness Week. And so after I read the article, I noticed on his program, like he was smashing the Munis, the children of God, Hare Krishna. He was putting us all in the same boat together. That's when I was distributing Shubhananda's Please Don't Lump Us In article that he had. And then it was a mention that there would be an ex-Hare Krishna speaking about Hare Krishna. So I again dressed up in plain clothes to go and see who this was going to be. And it was a godbrother of ours, or ex-godbrother, well, I don't know what you want to call him. His name was Jagannath Sutta, and he used to be with BTG
Oh,
in Philadelphia.
oh,
Yeah, and
yeah.
he came out in
He
a little,
came to LA.
he came out in a little suit, and he said, you know, I used to be one of the Hare Krishnas. My name was Jagannath Sutta. And he said, you know, I really wanted to learn Sanskrit, but my temple president told me I had to go on Sankirtan. He said, Sankirtan is the way they get their money. He said, they sell flowers and books. And said, but I wanted to stay back and read Sankirtan and study Sanskrit, but they forced me to go on Sankirtan. I realized, oh, maybe that's not so cool if sometimes we force our devotees, you know? So anyway, the rabbi would go on berating my efforts because I would have a cooking class. I followed Stamba's program called Cooking and Consciousness. I'd have 7 different cooking classes. I brought in Mother Subhuti to do the cooking demo. And the first week, you know, cook how, you know, proteins can be found in plant-based. And the second one was the economics of vegetarianism and the environmental considerations, and gradually vegetarianism and the great philosophers, vegetarianism and ethics, and finally vegetarianism in the Islam, vegetarianism in Judaism, vegetarianism in Christianity, and finally the last class was vegetarianism and Vaishnav culture. And every time I bring a big feast from the temple. Anyway, I saw the rabbi, he kept up his antics. So I contacted the ombudsman for the Human Rights Commission in Toronto. And I asked for a meeting with the rabbi. And I went out of my way and I went to the Jewish part of town and I bought a bottle of Manischewitz grape juice, not wine, kosher blessed grape juice. And it was not my idea. I just wanted a meeting with the rabbi, the ombudsman, and ourselves. But it was Bhakti Mark Swami's idea that no, we should get all the other cults and we should all, like, you know, take a stand against the rabbi. And I said, no, you know, if we look at that, what was that? The Year of the Guru? It was in the, I think the East Village Other, or maybe the New York Times. There was an article on Prabhupada, the Year of the Guru. And it showed Prabhupada's photo with Yogananda and Chinmayananda and so many bogey yogis. And Prabhupada allegedly didn't like that. He didn't want to be lumped in with all the impersonalists. So I didn't like the idea of inviting all these actual cult groups, but, you know, I didn't want to fight with my local authority. So we all came together in this room and I poured everyone a little glass of grape juice. And the only one who wouldn't take it was the rabbi, which is funny because it was his kosher juice. And the ombudsman told the rabbi that if you want, you can point out devious activities of what a cult is like, but you cannot call anybody by name. So they slapped the rabbi's knuckles like this, and he changed Cult Awareness Week to Pulling Your Own Strings, which is a name by a book by Dr. Wayne Dwyer. You were saying you met this Jagannath Sutta in Los Angeles?
I did, yes.
I saw one of his lectures. He was terrible.
Okay.
Dire. Yeah.
Doing the same thing.
No knowledge at all.
Sentimental.
Well,
I
he didn't
was
stay
in
at
New
the
York.
temple.
I was in New York, and I saw one of his lectures on television on Channel 13, PBS. And then sometime later, PBS called me for a donation.
Called you?
I said, no, you have your Wayne Dyer. And he's a millionaire, lives in Hawaii in a mansion. And he had the whole crowd in the audience on your station. And he would chant, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Life is but a dream. I said, sir, people have real problems. You can't tell them life is but a dream. And that's your guru?
I did.
No knowledge at all, no philosophy.
I did hear a talk by Dr. Wayne Dyer where he actually quoted, it was actually Prabhupada's translation, I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this engage themselves in my service with devotion. And I was blown away. I thought, wow, those are exactly Prabhupada's words.
Milk, everything you say to them can and will be used against you. They will take so. That's why I want to get, I said this on the the Guru Purnima Zoom. Let's collect, don't teach these things to the unfaithful. They will use it against you. You know when a policeman gives you the Miranda rights, and this lawyers have said, don't
What does
answer
that
them.
mean? Miranda rights.
Okay, in America, there were illegal arrests. So now they have to say, sometimes they even have to read it off a card. You are under arrest. You have the right to attorney. You have the right to remain silent. You have a right
Okay.
to waive it. If you do not have the funds, an attorney will be silent. And then they say, do you understand? Say you understand. Okay, understand means I stand
Stand
under
what?
you. You're accepting authority.
Oh, I understand.
I stand under. That means you're agreeing to the authority of the policeman. And now they can say anything you did.
Oh, wow.
And then in court, they'll say, he said this and this and this, and that he was willing to talk, but then he didn't talk to us. I did not. Well, now it's your word against his.
Right. And remember, it says
two cops that
the
say
right-
you understand. So,
Yeah.
really shaky.
So you should never say I
Sometimes-
understand. You should always never say I understand.
No, maybe you can say I comprehend. But if you say
But
understand,
they also
for
say
instance,
you have
wait-
the right to remain silent.
Please let me go. I'm gonna close out.
$1.40.
No, I'm here's the mouse. You want the mouse? I'll close. Sometimes on the computer, you will see a little thing come down. Oh, we have these rules here, and click on I understand. Now, you know what? You've agreed to their contract.
Yeah.
You'll get a bill. You'll get a charge somewhere. And if you defend it, say, he said that he agreed. I did not. Yes, you said I understand. I'm in trouble now. We're gonna get kicked off.
I better stop this. It's okay.
It's too late for
So
me.
what-
Yeah, me too.
This is on YouTube.
Without giving me the mouse.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Hello. I am not continuing any more meetings if this is on YouTube. Hello. And here's the mouse. Goodbye.
I'm stopping the
I did
video.
not know that. I was not informed. If you to put these on YouTube, I'm not joining.
I've stopped the
Good
video.
night.
Good night. All right, everyone. We'll see you on Friday. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. You have the
Night.
right to remain silent.
Good night. Good night, Vija.
Life is but a scream.